I think it's really important, as Trump has said, his day one policy is to start deporting people. And so I wanted to take a closer look at this Tom Homan, who he's presented as his Border Czar. And something that brought to mind was the exchange he had with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in 2019 in front of the U.S. Senate.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their
If I get arrested for DUI and I have a young child in the car, I'm going to be separated. When I was a police officer in New York and I arrested a father for domestic violence, I separated that father
Mr.
from his
Homan,
family.
with all due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
When you're into the country illegally, it's violation 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum, you go through the port of entry, do it the legal way. The Attorney General of the United States has made that clear.
Okay.
So we have someone that has zero empathy when it comes to family separation at the borders, doubles down, has no problem doing that. And now he's in charge of this large-scale deportation operation. And you and I have talked about, and we've shown him talking about it before, but I think it's important to remind people what this type of mass deportation policy entails.
We have seen one estimate that says it would cost $88 billion to deport 1 million people a year.
I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Is that what American taxpayers should expect?
What price do you put on national security? Is it worth it?
Is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there is. Families can be deported together.
So what he is insinuating is that if you have a mixed legal status family, that instead of going through the legal hoops, everybody can just be deported. We'll just deport people with legal status and non-legal status. And Trump has made it very clear, people with protected legal status without citizenship are fair game for this policy. And 1 million people being deported a year, the $88 billion to deport these people. My question is it worth it? Because all these Republicans are so focused on deportation and the economy. Then I hear this man on Fox News going on and on about, well, they're just going to get the criminals, and all these criminals they're going to go into workplaces and start taking people out of their jobs. And it strikes me as odd that he will be able to tell who the criminals are by their workplace environment. So I can't wrap my head around this. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, you're talking about a lot of incompetent people that don't have the infrastructure to do this. But more than anything, they're very cruel, and they have delivered and campaigned on a very fascist Nazi-style idea of identifying the enemy, dehumanizing them, calling them animals, vermin, bad genes, etc. Very Hitler-esque. And so once he's sworn in, I think there's going to be a show of something like this. They're going to want to show, look at what tough guys we are. I don't know. I oftentimes try to apply my normal person logic to a Donald Trump in his orbit. And it's like the definition of insanity. I keep, trying the same thing over and over again with a different result. I do think that Donald Trump's ego is so wrapped up in the economy, and he feels like he's the green president. And when I say green, I'm not talking about environment. I'm talking about money. Mm-hmm. And a lot of his ego is wrapped up in that. And he cares very much about what other billionaires think about him. And so obviously, I mean, a part of the reason that our economy is doing so well, contrary to what the public thinks in a post-COVID world, is because of immigration. And that message didn't quite get out there because you have half the country that is very anti-immigration, including a lot of Latinos, surprisingly.
Surprising.
So, I mean, I think this guy's a nut. I think he's dangerous. He spent the last 2 years on really far crazy podcasts talking about a bunch of crazy shit. But this is going to be hard. I mean, they are going to, the assaults that we're going to get from immigration to women to speech to all the shit that Trump talks about. It's going to be an onslaught, nonstop, lazy Susan, a fuckery with this guy. And once he starts back in again and he starts tweeting and he starts governing, his likability and favorability and approval ratings are all going to plummet because nobody likes him when he's in charge of anything, except for maybe like 39%.
What's interesting about that is since he has been the president-elect, I have noticed the uptick in the commanding tweets. And you just kind of forget how he ran the country via his Twitter account. He didn't really have any policy ideas. It was just hateful rhetoric on Twitter. And we're already back there. A week later, we're already back. Here he goes. But another thing I wanted just to point out, because I think it's important, there are laws in the United States regarding deportation of people. And so one of the leading legal experts is Neil Katyal. And this is what he said regarding this mass deportation plan in terms of the legal system.
There are two big differences going forward in 2025. One is that the president looks like he's going to have the House and Senate also with him. And many of the times when the courts stop the president, and particularly President Trump, it's because he's doing something by unilateral executive action. Mm-hmm. And Justice Jackson, other justices have said when it's the president plus Congress together with legislation, then they defer to that more. And the second is, of course, the personnel of the court has changed even since 2020. You've got Justice Barrett replacing Justice Ginsburg, to take one notable example. Mm-hmm. So how does that play out in mass immigration? Well, I mean, Trump's plan is he says he's going to prioritize criminals for deportation. Honestly, if only he led by example, that'd be one thing. But what he's basing this on is this idea that the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 permits it. I do think the courts are going to protect us and protect the individuals. It requires a invasion or predatory incursion, which is very hard to say is going on.
So in addition to, you've got in some industries up to 25% is illegal immigration. They're going to take them off the workforce. So that's economy. And then you've got housing. A stat that sticks out to me is 1.9 million people are incarcerated in the United States. What they're wanting to do is round up and mass deport 13 million. So they're going to have to get infrastructure for that. And then they're going to have to put them through the legal process using an arcane law. So all of that costs time and money. So my question is, does Trump have the ability and those that surround him to prepare the infrastructure and stick it out and pay the money, or all the money that's going to be taken away from the economy for these endeavors? Are people going to start switching their position, in your opinion?
I mean, I think you're going to have this big show at first, just like he built, 5 yards of the border wall. And then it's going to prove to be too complicated. Is Congress going to allot the funds for all of this? Because it's, as you stated, almost $100 billion. And I want to comment about something that he said about the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is so compromised.
Yes.
If Brett Kavanaugh votes against Donald Trump will get on Twitter and he'll get on Truth Social and say, Brett Kavanaugh is disloyal. I killed all these investigations of all of these women that claimed that he sexually abused, and I helped him and he didn't help me. And he owns Brett Kavanaugh. He owns Alito, his wife, involved with all this random flag hobby of all this white nationalist stuff. Same with Clarence Thomas. I don't trust any of these right-wingers on the court to have integrity or follow the law or have an oath to the Constitution, because look at how compromised they are. Look at what they did, the powers that they gave him when he was being charged with all these felonies and insurrection. I mean, so I don't understand how much it would take to do this, but I do think that these people are ambitious about this deportation thing. I do think they're going to have to do some show of it. Now, once it starts impacting the economy, that's the part where Trump is not a quite the sociopath that Stephen Miller and this Tom Homan wants him to be, because if it starts killing the economy, his ego can't take that. Because everybody could just get on Twitter and Truth and say, Donald Trump killed the market, Donald Trump killed the economy. And he'd be like, whoa, 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 let's stop the deportations. You know, I fired this guy, I fired that guy, because everything is just like a 10-second issue for him.
Right.
That all lead to people worshiping him.
Well, it's going to be very interesting to watch. And I just have to throw this in. Speaking of killer, we have now heard that Kristi Noem, the dog killer, is going to be appointed to Secretary of Homeland Security.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's just, I mean, it's just like, why are people voting for stupid people? Like, that's the one thing when I look to vote for people, I want people to be more disciplined than me, be more objective than me, be smarter than me, care about all these boring policy stuff that would bore me to tears. I want the brainiac nerds dealing with this stuff that have patience, tolerance, empathy, fair-minded, all of the things that I could never be. That's what I want in a leader. But I guess I'm in the minority now because the majority of people want Kristi Noem, who basically had to babysit him on stage while he did his dementia bobble.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what we're talking about. I don't even know why we're here. We'll see you guys later.